Hello there, and welcome to this special Boring History episode on the rather disturbing lives of the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. If you're looking for a calming and thought-provoking historical story to carry you off to dreamland, you've come to the right place. Before we begin our journey back in time, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time of day it is for you right now. Feel free to leave a comment and say hello. And if you enjoy this type of relaxing, educational content, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Alright, let's set the stage, shall we? Imagine a land of golden deserts, lush river valleys, and monumental temples and tombs that pierce the vivid blue sky. A civilization that endured for over 3,000 years, leaving an indelible mark on human history. At the center of it all were the pharaohs, the divine rulers who wielded immense power and prestige. But behind the glittering facade of riches and royalty, the lives of these god-kings were often steeped in darkness, obsession, and shocking practices that may be hard for us to fathom today. Over the next hour or so, we'll be diving deep into the fascinating and often unsettling world of ancient Egyptian pharaohs. We'll explore their opulent daily lives inside sprawling palace complexes, their tangled webs of royal relationships and rivalries, and their unshakable belief in their own divinity. We'll also confront the pharaohs' fixation on death and the afterlife, which drove them to construct ever more elaborate tombs and funerary temples, and even led some to engage in the chilling practice of human sacrifice. By the end of our journey, we'll have encountered influential figures like Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, King Tut, and Ramses II, and trace the captivating mysteries modern archaeologists are still unraveling about their lives and times. It's a story of power, magic, obsession, and eternal legacies that have enthralled the world for centuries. So dim the lights, settle in, and let the intrigues of ancient Egypt softly whisk you away on the wings of history. But before we fully immerse ourselves in the distant past, let's first zoom out and take in ancient Egyptian civilization at its height. Stretching from around 3100 BCE to 30 BCE, ancient Egypt was one of the first and longest-lasting complex societies in human history. The kingdom was born when King Menes unified the disparate tribes of the lush Nile Valley into a single state, taking advantage of the river's fertile floodplains to fuel an agricultural revolution that would be the envy of the ancient world. Over the centuries, Egypt grew into a powerhouse of wealth, culture, and influence, its lands stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to deep into Nubia in the south. The pharaohs presided over a centralized state with a sophisticated bureaucracy, groundbreaking technological advancements like the ox-drawn plough and sailboats, and a rich culture that produced timeless works of art, architecture, and literature. The Egyptians developed one of the world's earliest writing systems in the form of hieroglyphics, as well as a 365-day calendar that tracked the annual flooding of the Nile with uncanny precision. But perhaps their most visible and enduring achievements were the colossal monuments they left behind: the Great Pyramids, sprawling temple complexes, and subterranean tombs hewn into cliffsides. These awe-inspiring feats of engineering served to project the godlike power and prestige of the pharaohs, while also hinting at the depths of their obsession with death and eternity. For the pharaohs, this earthly life was but a prelude to a glorious and well-provisioned immortality, and they would bend immense resources and human capital to securing their share of forever. At the center of this remarkable civilization were the pharaohs themselves, the divine kings who ruled as the living embodiment of the god Horus on earth. The pharaoh was the supreme authority in all matters of state, religion, and war, wielding a level of power and influence that would be almost unimaginable today. He, or in rare cases she, was responsible for maintaining order and balance in the cosmos, placating the gods with rituals and offerings, and ensuring the prosperity and protection of the Egyptian people. But this exalted status came with a dark side as well. As we'll soon discover, the pharaohs were bound by an intricate and often brutal web of rituals, superstitions, and obligations that governed every aspect of their lives and deaths. From the incestuous marriages they contracted to keep the royal bloodline pure, to the servants and pets they took with them into the grave, to the shocking acts of deification and human sacrifice some pharaohs engaged in, the lives of these divine rulers were often steeped in as much darkness as light. So, as we set off to explore the private lives and enduring legacy of some of history's most iconic and influential rulers, brace yourself for a journey into the captivating, beguiling, and at times disturbing world of the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Let's begin by imagining a day in the life of a pharaoh at the height of the New Kingdom, around 1500 BCE. Dawn breaks gently over the shining limestone walls of the pharaoh's sprawling palace complex at Thebes. The king and his entourage are roused from their sleep by the soft sound of blind musicians serenading the sunrise, as barefoot servants pad silently through torch-lit halls, bearing trays of delicacies to break the royal fast. In the palace's colonnaded courtyards, songbirds flit among lush gardens and burbling fountains as tame baboons and lion cubs lounge in the shade. The pharaoh emerges from his bedchamber accompanied by a coterie of body servants who have spent the last hour attending to his elaborate grooming regimen. They've shaved his head and body silky smooth to stave off lice, lined his eyes with striking kohl and green malachite, and anointed his limbs with fragrant oils and perfumes. Gold and electrum gleam at his throat and wrists, while an exquisite crown in the shape of a falcon encircles his brow, a symbol of his divine kinship with the god Horus. Thus arrayed in all his finery, the living god strides forth to begin his packed schedule of daily duties and devotions. First on the agenda is a visit to the palace shrine to make offerings and libations to the chief gods, Re the sun god, Osiris the god of the underworld, and the pharaoh's own deified ancestors. Chanting priests fill the incense-perfumed air with hymns and prayers, as the king prostrates himself before the serene painted gazes of the gods. With his religious obligations discharged, the pharaoh convenes his council to hear petitions, dispense judgments, and consult on affairs of state. Seated on a golden throne, he listens as his vizier reads out the day's business. Boundary disputes to settle, trade agreements to negotiate, construction projects to oversee. Though he solicits advice from his most trusted courtiers, the final word on all matters ultimately rests with him. The day wears on in a blur of ceremonies and spectacles designed to awe the populace and reinforce the pharaoh's divine right to rule. The king processes through the city in a magnificent chariot, the cheers of his subjects rising like a wave as he showers them with gifts of gold and grain. He officiates over the ritual opening of a new temple, driving in the first peg with a golden mallet as priests chant incantations to seal the sacred space. But even in these moments of public triumph, an undercurrent of dark superstition and obsessive ritual runs beneath the surface. The pharaoh is careful to always enter a room right foot first to ward off evil spirits. He eats only with his left hand, reserving his right for communing with the gods. And he never, ever allows his shadow to fall across a priest or a statue of a deity, lest he incur divine wrath that could bring ruin upon the kingdom. As Re's fiery orb sinks slowly toward the western horizon, the pharaoh retires to his private quarters for a few snatched moments of relaxation before the evening banquet. Lithe dancing girls sway sinuously to the strains of harps and lyres, while the king sips date wine from a golden goblet and contemplates the finer points of theology with his advisors. But even in repose, the spectre of death and eternity are never far from his mind. For the pharaoh knows that this mortal life, however opulent and godlike, is but a fleeting dream compared to the glorious forever that awaits him in the field of reeds. It's why he's already poured untold resources into his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, a hidden city of the dead, where he will reign in splendor for all eternity. But first, he must navigate the tangled web of obligations and dangers that come with wearing the double crown. And nowhere are those perils more present than in his own royal household. From the day he ascends the throne, one of the pharaoh's most pressing duties is to secure the succession by producing a male heir. But in the incestuous hothouse of the royal family, where pharaohs routinely wed their siblings and even their own children to keep the bloodline pure, the battle for power and influence is always seething just beneath the gilded surface. The king's great royal wife may be his half-sister, but that doesn't stop her from plotting with priests and courtiers to advance her own son's claim to the throne over that of his older half-brother. Indeed, the annals of Egyptian history are littered with tales of palace intrigue, rival queens, and ruthless power plays between potential heirs. Take the remarkable story of Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh who ruled as king in her own right for over 20 years in the 15th century BCE. Though she was originally just a regent for her young stepson Thutmose III, Hatshepsut slowly consolidated power, adopting all the masculine trappings of kingship, and even depicting herself with a beard in official artwork. Or consider the shocking tale of the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, who upended centuries of religious tradition by proclaiming the sun disk Aten as the one true god and outlawing the worship of all others. In his religious zeal, Akhenaten even changed his name from Amenhotep IV to reflect his devotion to Aten, moved the capital to a remote desert city, and persecuted the powerful priests of Amun. His reign was plagued by palace conspiracies and ended in disaster, with his young son Tutankhamun left to pick up the pieces. But perhaps the most disturbing example of how the pharaoh's godlike power could be abused is the practice of human sacrifice that was once disturbingly common in ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have unearthed numerous so-called retainer sacrifices in the tombs of early kings like Jer and Jet, where dozens of servants were slaughtered to continue serving their master in the afterlife. Even more chillingly, some pharaohs like Aha were buried with their pets and worldly treasures, as well as piles of human hair wigs, likely shorn from sacrificial victims. Thankfully, this ghastly practice seems to have died out by the end of the Old Kingdom, as the Egyptians developed more symbolic ways for pharaohs to take their earthly entourage with them into the afterlife. But it remains a dark stain on the otherwise glittering legacy of the pharaohs, a reminder of the unfathomable gulf that separated these divine kings from the teeming masses they ruled over. As the centuries roll on, the pharaohs continue to shape the course of Egyptian history and leave their mark in stone and story. Some, like Ramses II, known as Ramses the Great, presided over the kingdom at the height of its power and splendor, their triumphs and love lives immortalized on the walls of the temples they built to their own glory. Others, like the fabled Cleopatra VII, became entangled in the high-stakes intrigues of the wider Mediterranean world, their personal charisma and political savvy the stuff of enduring legend. But perhaps no pharaoh has captured the modern imagination quite like the boy King Tutankhamun, whose lavish tomb discovery in 1922 set off a global wave of Tutmania and turned the once obscure ruler into a household name. The dazzling treasures found in Tut's tomb, from his iconic golden death mask to the nested coffins and thrones, provided an unprecedented glimpse into the opulence and artistry of a royal burial and cemented the pharaoh's reputation as the ultimate status symbols of the ancient world. Today, new archaeological discoveries and cutting-edge scientific techniques are allowing us to peer even deeper into the lives and deaths of these endlessly fascinating rulers. CT scans and DNA analysis have revealed the inbred genetic deformities that plagued Tut's family line, as well as the festering wounds